It's the Gayatri mantra we just sang together. And that particular version of the mantra is composed by the artist whose name is Amitabhan. And he's actually sang on this stage for us. He came to us and he sang that beautiful song of his called Use Less. And it's a song to encourage us to be good stewards of the resources of this planet. And I mention that because Amitabhan is coming on Wednesday evening for our first Wednesday evening service of prayer, song, and meditation. You know, on every first Wednesday, we launch a new spiritual practice. And Wednesday, we're starting to talk about creativity as a spiritual practice. And our music director, who usually is there on Wednesdays, Chris Fritchie, he's got a concert in the city, so he arranged for Amitabhan to come. And so he's going to be singing, you know, a bunch of his music interlaced with prayer. It's going to be very beautiful. And for those who come to the first Wednesday service, you'll also receive the free spiritual resource, Creativity as a Spiritual Practice, that's been put together beautifully by Alan Yeager. And this is a wonderful piece to guide you through the month of looking at creative ways to explore your spirituality. That's how we get you to the service. We give things away. So come along and get this and enjoy and get to enjoy Amitabhan's beautiful singing. Now, this Gayatri mantra that we sang, you know, among Hindus, it's as well known as a prayer as is some of the Western prayers like the Lord's Prayer or St. Francis' prayer for peace is known to many people here. Is very, very well known. And it's difficult to translate. Sanskrit is difficult to translate. We need a lot of words to translate simple phrases in Sanskrit. And there are some free-form translations that go something like this. The prayer is about, let us meditate on that radiant light at the center of creation that gives rise to all creation, that is literally the original architect of this cosmos. And by doing so, by letting our minds concentrate on this, our own consciousness is propelled into enlightenment. Who wouldn't want to chant that? It's very beautiful. Still, some people say, why don't we chant in English? Because, you know, it's a distraction. It's hard to pronounce all of these words. And one of our own musicians, Melissa Felipe, had a response to that. She said she was kind of worried about the words she was chanting, not sure exactly what they meant, you know, didn't know what she was invoking. So her response to it was to create her own chants. And she put together this beautiful CD called Chants of a Lifetime. And there are 8 beautiful chants on this. I'm alive in spirit, surrender to love, I'm whole and complete in God. And what's nice about this CD, it's got 2 versions of each, one with the vocals and one with the instrumental, so you can be the soloist in it. It's very lovely. It's very beautiful. And it's a beautiful way to practice in your own language, English, you know. And you know, people still want to know, why don't we chant more in English? And another one of the responses to that is, you know, some languages are just better suited to singing than others. And what is the language of opera? Italian. Because of those beautiful open vowels that almost every word ends in. You know, it's a singer's dream to intone on those open vowels. English, not so much. You know, it's complex. The vowels are difficult to make sound beautiful. So sometimes you have to fudge it. And a close cousin to Italian is Latin. You know, that's why plain chant, Gregorian chant is so beautiful. Ends on those beautiful open vowels. And people will say to me, well, why don't we sing plain chant and Gregorian chant? But for a similar reason that we don't really sing a whole lot of the Tibetan chants is because both of these are special art forms. They require a little more skill, to tell the truth. For example, in plain chant and Gregorian chant, there's no rhythm. It's based on the spoken mass. It's kind of tricky. You know, it requires a precision of understanding and voice too. And not only that, because it's based on the mass, it's not fully accessible to a universal audience because the words are entirely about the mass, and so for some people that doesn't resonate, you know. Whereas what I love about the Hindu religion is, they have so many concepts of deity, so many avatars of God, so many ways of practicing that the religion is more hospitable to other world religions. We can fit in. In fact, if you look into Hinduism, I find in it no conversion mission whatsoever. No Hindu is trying to get you to convert. At the heart of Hinduism is this true, sincere appreciation of all paths. An integration, come, be part with your God. And some people will say, the other reason to chant in Sanskrit is because Sanskrit is no ordinary language. It is, they will say, a given language, a God-inspired language. It's not no ordinary human language. And the very sounds of the words are infused with a holy energy. Some people believe that. Either way, the Gayatri mantra is, I would say, known to almost every Hindu. And there are literally hundreds of books that are written about its meaning and its origin and its use. And as I was reading up about it, some trivia about the Gayatri mantra, I discovered that Gayatri refers to a meter in poetry. 3 lines of 8 syllables. So as a result, there are many, many Gayatri mantras. But when you say in the Hindu word, the Gayatri mantra, this is the one that comes to mind. It has taken the identity of the term because it is so popular, so powerful, so well loved. Well, the question for us here at the center is, what is actually the purpose when we are repeating something like the Gayatri mantra or our prayer or our affirmation or our mantra, some powerful phrase? What are we doing? I think what we are doing is we are calling our awareness home from wherever it is to come home to what God is and to dwell in that. Lately, I've been having to call my cat Andrew home at night because raccoons have moved into the neighborhood. They don't get on well. The raccoons win every time. But Andrew doesn't like to come in until 1 a.m., and my bedtime is earlier than that. And he's out there in the dark, hunting for lizards and other scary things. And so I have to call him back earlier on in the evening. And so there I'm standing on the porch, and I found a way. I can use his food bowl, And if I use a spoon on it rhythmically, the rhythm will connect with him, and he will come home from whatever he was distracted with eventually, and I can close the door. That's what chanting is like. And in that regard, chanting is it's the best kind of prayer. Because it is not addressed to anyone or to anything, and it is not being sent out to reach some external power or some deity. No, it is addressed to your own inner self, to the Lord of love seated in your soul, to the source of everything. So when we chant, I think of it this way: I'm not asking for anything, I'm not chanting for good health, I'm not chanting to get a solution, I'm not chanting for more riches or deeper love. I try to change the language. I'm not chanting for, I'm chanting about something. I'm simply calling my awareness from wherever it is busy being distracted and hunting for lizards. I'm calling it back home to the source of all things, to the Lord of love seated in my soul, to the bright light of the universe that is at the center of the universe, which happens to be where you are. Calling my awareness back home, because sometimes it strays, like my cat. I was trying to think of an example of my straying awareness. And then I remembered, when Chelsea announced the trips that we're going on next year. One year I went on a trip to Bali with the community, but before I went to Bali, I thought I would, drop in on my family in South Africa and visit. It's not exactly en route, but you have to travel around the world to Johannesburg. But I did it, it was worth it. And then I got discombobulated. I got my time zones wrong, and I got to the airport, dropped my car off at the rental place in Johannesburg airport at 10 o'clock at night, got to the counter, missed the plane. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. It's gone already. All of a sudden, my awareness was out the door, right? It was hunting lizards. It's like panicking because I know there's a whole community of 50 people going to Bali. I'm not going to be there when they get there. Not only that, it's Johannesburg Airport. Johannesburg Airport at 10 o'clock at night, and I already gave my car back. But I remembered the practice. And as I stood there paralyzed, I started to intone in my own mind, there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. You see, then there's a way to say it. The first emphasis is on one. See, there is only one life. The second emphasis is on God, and that life is God's life. The third emphasis is on perfect, and that life is. And the fourth emphasis is on my, and that life is life now. God, life, perfect, my. God, life, perfect, my. God, life, perfect, my. Come home. So I can walk to the rental counter and say, I want my car back. And even when I finally did get back to a friend's home in the guest room, I realized I was shaken with the imagined futures I had drummed up in my mind, the creatures in the bushes. And I stayed with the practice. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And the rhythm has the effect of tapping the food bowl with a fork. And then the intellect calms down and the bottom falls out and you come home to divine presence. And I remember. So chanting has the effect of getting me closer to the divine presence. It reminds me of what's important so that I can deal with the world. It reminds me of that phrase of Jesus that says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and then everything else will be added to you. It doesn't say seek everything, seek every solution first, and then you will be in the kingdom of heaven. Oh, put first things first. Sometimes I focus on the task first before the consciousness. And we had a funny exchange on text message this morning. Chris had a question about the service, and early in the morning he texted me, should I do A, B, and C in the service? The next text message is, good morning. The next message is, switch those two around. And we laugh because sometimes in the center we are so engaged, the staff, with what we are doing that we put the task before the person. And so oftentimes I'll say to someone, business, detail, and they'll look at me and say, good morning. You see, come home first. Come home first. Just celebrate what is at the heart of the matter. The bright, glorious light. Be in it. Acknowledge it. Rejoice in it. Connect. Do you know that when we do come home first, Everything else is added to us. Everything else gets better all by itself because of what's in us, because of the radiant light that's coming in us. And then we can focus less on the request and more on the consciousness. And that's easier than focusing on the task. This is what we teach our children in the youth program. We teach them to focus and celebrate what God is. We say to them, God is life, and they say, I am life. We say, God is light. They say, I am light. God is joy. I am joy. God is peace. I am peace. God is love. I am love. God is beauty. I am beauty. God is power. I am power. Just purely a celebration of my identity within the one. I mean, you can do that with yourself. You can just say, God is life. I am life. God is light. I am light. God is joy. I am joy. God is peace. I am peace. God is love. I am love. God is beauty. I am beauty. God is power. I am power. God is life. I am life. God is light. I am light. God is joy. I am joy. God is peace. I am peace. You do that 108 times. You'll come home. And home is where the heart is. So when can you use this practice of chanting mantra, affirmation, or prayer? Well, it's a good way to wake up. It's a good thing for first thing in the morning. In fact, I recommend taking a prayer like that one, God is life, I am life, and print it out and stick it up on the first surface that you are likely to see in focus in the morning. Perhaps it's on your bathroom mirror so that when you get there, you can start the motor in your heart. God is life. I am light. God is joy. And then you can keep it going while you're doing everything, brushing your teeth, making your coffee. What a way to start it. I just returned from our men's retreat at Saratoga Springs, and at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, the men and I gathered, and we used the affirmation from this month. We sat together and we said, within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. And there's a way to say it too. There's a beat after every line. Within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. Within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. Within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. And we did it 108 times. Start at 7:30 in the morning. It takes 20 minutes. Then it's 10 to 8. And you just sit in the silence that follows that calling home. Because after the recitation, the mantra is it's like unrolling this carpet. And then there is this quiet. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to rush into action. You just want to take in the splendid silence, the terrific light that is in the heart of everything. What is another way to use chanting? Well, at the other end of the day, wake up with it, go to sleep with it. It's a terrific way to put yourself to sleep, to wind down into your heart. I speak to people sometimes and they use TV and the news and reading. They tell me they're tired, they're not getting adequate rest, or they're stressed out. And when we examine their end of day technique, we find often that's the culprit. They're winding down, putting themselves to sleep with mental stimulation. Or one person told me he can't sleep unless the TV remains on. And he wonders why he wakes up anxious. Another one says he watches the news because he wants to keep pace with world events. He wonders why he's anxious. You see, I think there is a better time to keep in step with world events than last thing at night. Another one said he tried stopping all that reading and that television, but then his mind just thought about all the problems. So his mind became a festival of problems. And in this way, they're falling asleep with the mindset of stress. Whereas with a mantra, you're falling asleep with the mindset of celebration. And admittedly, it takes practice. Well, that's what our theme is, practice. I mean, I have to make a habit out of it because my mind wants to forget it. You know, that's why this CD is such a wonderful thing. You can put it on, last thing, and just listen. Or the CD, the resource we made this month, Chanting as a Spiritual Practice, you can just put it on and go to sleep with it. Yeah. And so when else can we use chanting? In the morning, at night? How about all day? Because, you know, chanting is a beautiful way to address such things as the compulsions that drive us to do things in excess. Over-consuming. Over-expressing. You know, from media to food to entertainment. Sometimes when I feel it pushing me, I can just return to my favorite holy phrase and start the engine going, you know. One teacher I read about mantra said that it has the ability, it can adjust indiscriminate TV watching. Well, obviously, because you say that mantra, within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. You say that 108 times. It takes 20 minutes. You sit for half as long, 10 minutes in silence. Then without rushing, you rise up. And the last question on your mind is, I wonder what's on TV. Instead, everything is beautiful. You know, you can also use chanting to address such things as impatience. Standing in line and the person in front of you is paying with pennies. Within me is fullness of life. Within me is joy everlasting. Within me is peace, peace, peace. With humor, you know, you can use it when you detect your grudges come back. You know how it comes back. Or resentment is suddenly present again. To shift your focus entirely to home. And you can use it to support other people too. You know, at this Man Spirit retreat, we recreated a journey, the journey to the oracle, as each man went with the question, the most important question in their heart, to consult with the oracle. And because we sent them out in twos, those of us that stayed behind, we chanted to support them on their journey, and we sang, lead me from the unreal to the real, lead me from darkness to light, lead me from death to immortality. And we sang it 424 times. And you could hear the sound rising up in the canyon as each person went out. And it reminded me of what the medieval mystic Shankara said. He said, you know, after you, me and you, after we establish ourselves in the power of our mantra, our prayer, once we're established in it, and we no longer need to say it because it's running automatically in us, we might still nevertheless choose to say it consciously, and when we do, that energy that is generated from it can be credited to others. Isn't that awesome? But the but is, seek ye first the kingdom. You have to get filled up to share from the overflow. So come home. Turn on the light. Make a fire. lay the table, so that from that fullness, as you establish yourself in a celebration of the rightness of your life, there is such a glow and such a power that people near you can't help but find more selflessness in them, their own selves, that you are so rooted in your true identity that that person next to you can't help but be compassionate a little more. See, this is how you can be a contribution to the world. Dwell on the light that is at the center of the universe where you are, so that you are an irresistible expression of good. The Gayatri mantra, the words say, let us dwell upon that radiant power that creates the universe, that light that is worthy of our worship, that by concentrating on it, giving our awareness to it, our own minds are lifted up, propelled, it says, into enlightenment.